The studio lights blazed down on the set of The View, where the audience buzzed with anticipation. Joy Behar, sharp-tongued and ready for a verbal spar, leaned forward in her chair, her eyes glinting with mischief. "So, Chuck Norris, action star, martial arts legend, and internet meme king, welcome to the show," she began, her tone dripping with playful skepticism. The crowd cheered, but Chuck, seated calmly with his trademark stoic expression, gave a nod that was equal parts polite and guarded. "Thanks for having me, Joy," he said, his voice low and steady, like a distant storm brewing. Whoopi Goldberg chimed in, trying to keep things light. "Chuck, you've been kicking butt on screen for decades. What's it like to be a living legend?" Chuck smiled faintly, his rugged features softened by humility. "I just do what I love, Whoopi. It's about discipline, not fame." The audience clapped, but Joy wasn't ready to let him off easy. "Discipline, huh? Is that why you've got all those memes about you being tougher than physics itself? Like, a Chuck Norris can divide by zero?" The crowd laughed, but Chuck's jaw tightened slightly. "Memes are fun, Joy, but I'm here to talk about real stuff, of values, fitness, maybe even my new charity for veterans." Joy raised an eyebrow, sensing an opening. "Values? Like what, Chuck? Your tough guy image doesn't exactly scream a sensitive soul." The audience oh'd, sensing tension. Chuck leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Joy's. "Respect, Joy, that's a value, for people who serve, for truth, for not twisting words to get a laugh." Joy smirked, undeterred. "Oh, come on, Chuck, you're a walking action figure. You expect us to believe you're all about peace and love?" The crowd gasped, and Whoopi tried to steer the conversation. "Let's talk about your charity, Chuck." But Joy cut in. "No, no, I want to know, do you ever lighten up, or is it all roundhouse kicks and stoic stares?" Chuck's fingers tapped the armrest, a subtle sign of his patience thinning. "Joy, I lighten up plenty, but I don't play games with people's character." The audience murmured, sensing the heat rising. Joy, never one to back down, leaned closer. "Character? Chuck, you're a brand, not a philosopher. Let's be real, your fans love the myth, not the man." Chuck's eyes narrowed, and the air thickened with tension. "You don't know me, Joy, and you're about to find out why assumptions are dangerous." The crowd erupted in cheers, some for Joy's boldness, others for Chuck's quiet intensity. Whoopi called for a commercial break, her voice barely cutting through the electric atmosphere. As the cameras panned out, Chuck and Joy stared each other down, the stage set for a clash that would soon explode. Back from the break, the studio hummed with nervous energy. The audience, still buzzing from the earlier exchange, watched as Whoopi tried to reset the mood. "All right, folks, let's keep it civil and dive into Chuck's work with veterans. That's something we can all get behind, right?" she said, her tone hopeful but wary. Chuck nodded, his composure intact but his eyes still fixed on Joy. "I started my foundation because too many heroes come home and get forgotten. They need support, mental, physical, financial. That's what I'm about now." The audience clapped warmly, but Joy wasn't ready to let the tension dissolve. "That's great, Chuck, really, but let's talk about the elephant in the room. You're a conservative icon. Your values, they lean a certain way, don't they?" "Not exactly inclusive," the crowd gasped, and Sunny Hostin jumped in, trying to soften the blow. "Joy, let's focus on the charity. Chuck's doing good work." But Joy waved her off, her eyes locked on Chuck. "No, Sunny, I'm curious. Chuck, you've backed some polarizing figures. How do you square that with helping everyone?" Chuck's face hardened, but his voice stayed calm, deliberate. "I support people who stand for freedom, Joy, not division." "You're trying to paint me as something I'm not." Joy smirked, leaning back. "Freedom? That's a buzzword, Chuck. Your version of freedom doesn't always include everyone, does it? Like, say, people who don't fit your all-American mold?" The audience erupted, some cheering, others booing. Chuck's hand clenched briefly, but he kept his cool. "You're twisting things, Joy. I've spent my life helping people, veterans, kids, communities, regardless of who they are. You want to talk inclusion? Look at my actions, not your assumptions." Joy laughed, a sharp edge to it. Actions, like starring in movies where you blow stuff up and play the lone hero? That's not exactly community building, Chuck. The crowd roared, split between support for Joy's jab and Chuck's restraint. Whoopi tried to intervene. Okay, let's dial it back a bit. Chuck cut in, his voice firm but not loud. Joy, you're cherry-picking. My movies are entertainment. My life is about service. You wanna challenge that? Bring facts, not snark. The audience cheered louder, sensing Chuck's resolve. Joy, undaunted, fired back. Facts? Okay, fact. You've endorsed policies that not everyone here agrees with. That's divisive, Chuck, whether you admit it or not. Chuck's eyes flashed, but he leaned back, a slight smile forming. Joy, you're entitled to your opinion, but don't confuse disagreement with division. I don't need to shout to make a difference. The crowd roared again, and Whoopi, sensing the escalating heat, called for another break. The tension was palpable, the stage a powder keg waiting for a spark. The show returned, and the atmosphere was electric. The audience, now fully invested in the verbal showdown, leaned forward as Whoopi tried to pivot. Chuck, let's talk fitness. Your martial arts background, that's a big part of your life, right? Chuck nodded, grateful for the shift. Yeah, martial arts taught me discipline, respect, and how to stay grounded. It's not just about fighting, it's about focus. The crowd clapped, but Joy, still bristling, couldn't resist. Focus, huh? Is that what you're doing when you dodge questions about your politics? The audience gasped, and Sonny shot Joy a look. Come on, Joy, let him answer. But Joy pressed on. No, I'm serious. Chuck, you're this larger-than-life figure, but you avoid the tough stuff. Like, what's your take on the culture wars tearing this country apart? Chuck's jaw tightened, and for the first time, his voice carried a slight edge. Joy, I don't dodge. I'm here, answering you. Culture wars, they're real, but they're fueled by people like you who twist words to make headlines. The crowd erupted, some cheering, others booing. Joy's eyes widened, but she leaned in, undeterred. Oh, so I'm the problem? Chuck, you're the one with a fanbase that treats you like a demigod. That's not exactly humble. Chuck's laugh was low, almost dangerous. Humble? I don't claim to be perfect, Joy. But I don't sit on a stage judging people I don't know. You've been taking shots at me since I sat down. The audience roared, split down the middle. Whoopi tried to regain control. Okay, let's keep this productive. But Joy interrupted, her voice sharp. No, Whoopi, he's deflecting. Chuck, you can't just hide behind your tough guy image and expect us to buy it. Chuck's eyes locked onto hers, and the room fell silent for a split second. Joy, I'm not hiding. You wanna talk real? Let's talk about how you've spent this whole segment trying to paint me as something I'm not. That's not debate, it's a setup. The crowd exploded, some chanting Chuck, Chuck, while others clapped for Joy's boldness. Sonny tried to mediate. Look, we all have strong views, but let's focus on what unites us. Chuck nodded at Sonny, appreciative, but his gaze returned to Joy. I'm all for unity, Sonny, but unity starts with honesty, not ambushes. Joy scoffed, crossing her arms. Honesty? Chuck, your whole persona is built on myth. You're a symbol, not a saint. Chuck's smile was tight, controlled. And you're a talk show host, Joy, not a judge. Maybe try listening instead of lecturing. The audience went wild, the energy chaotic. Whoopi, exasperated, signaled for another break, her voice drowned out by the crowd's roar. The clash was reaching a boiling point, and everyone knew it. As the show resumed, the tension was thicker than ever. The audience, now a mix of cheers and murmurs, watched as Whoopi tried to steer the conversation to safer ground. Chuck, your new book on fitness and discipline is out now. Tell us about it. Chuck, still composed but visibly alert, nodded. It's about building strength of body and mind. I wrote it to help people find balance, especially in tough times. The crowd clapped, but Joy, arms crossed, jumped in. Balance? That's rich, Chuck. Your whole career is about being the toughest guy in the room. That's not balance, that's bravado. The audience oohed, and Chuck's eyes narrowed, his patience clearly fraying. Joy, you keep missing the point. Strength isn't just physical. It's about standing up for what's right, even when people like you try to tear it down. The crowd erupted, and Joy's smile was sharp, almost triumphant. "Tear it down, Chuck. I'm just asking questions." "You're the one getting defensive." Chuck leaned forward, his voice low but cutting. "Defensive? No, Joy, I'm calling you out. You've been trying to bait me this whole time, and I'm done playing nice." The audience gasped, then cheered, the energy electric. Whoopi tried to intervene. "Okay, let's take a breath," but Chuck continued, his tone steady but intense. "You want to talk about my career? Fine. I've spent decades inspiring people to be stronger, to stand tall, to help others." "What do you do, Joy?" "Sit here and take cheap shots for applause," the crowd roared, some chanting his name. Joy's face flushed, but she fired back. "Cheap shots? Chuck, I'm holding you accountable. Your fans might worship you, but the rest of us see through the myth." Chuck's laugh was short, sharp. "Accountable? For what, Joy?" "Living my life, helping people." "You're not holding me accountable, you're putting on a show." The audience was on its feet, the noise deafening. Sonny tried to calm things down. "Look, we're all passionate here. Let's talk about the book." But Joy cut her off, her voice rising. "No, Sonny, he doesn't get to play the victim." "Chuck, you're a cultural lightning rod. Own it." Chuck's eyes burned, but his voice stayed calm, almost icy. "I own who I am, Joy. Question is, do you? Or is this just your act?" The crowd went wild, split between cheers and boos. Whoopi, now visibly frustrated, called for a break, her voice barely audible over the chaos. The stage was a battlefield, and Chuck's eruption was imminent. The show returned, and the audience was practically vibrating with anticipation. Whoopi, desperate to regain control, tried to pivot. "All right, Chuck, let's talk about your legacy. What do you want people to remember you for?" Chuck, his expression hard but composed, leaned back. "I want to be remembered for helping people, veterans, kids, anyone who needs a hand up. That's what matters." The crowd clapped, but Joy, undeterred, leaned in with a smirk. "That's sweet, Chuck, but let's be real. Your legacy is action movies and memes. You're a caricature, not a role model." The audience gasped, and Chuck's eyes flashed with something dangerous. "Joy, you've crossed a line. You don't get to dismiss my life's work because it doesn't fit your narrative." His voice was low, controlled, but the intensity was unmistakable. The crowd erupted, sensing the eruption they'd been waiting for. Joy, unfazed, fired back. "Narrative? Chuck, your whole image is a narrative. Tough guy, patriot, untouchable. It's a fantasy for your fans." Chuck's jaw clenched, and he stood up, his presence commanding the room. "Fantasy? I've lived my values every day: discipline, service, respect. You wanna talk fantasies? Look at this show, Joy. You sit here, judging people, acting like you've got all the answers." The audience roared, some cheering, others stunned. Whoopi jumped in. "Chuck, sit down, let's talk this out." But Chuck stayed standing, his voice rising for the first time. "No, Whoopi, I'm done." "Joy, you've been disrespecting me since I walked in. You don't know me, my work, or my heart. You wanna talk legacy? Mine's built on action, not words." The crowd went wild, chanting his name. Joy, her face red, stood up too. "Action? Chuck, you're a relic of a bygone era. Your values don't speak to everyone." Chuck stepped closer, his voice booming now. "And your cynicism doesn't speak for everyone, Joy. I'm here for the people who believe in something bigger than snarky sound bites." The audience was on its feet, the noise deafening. Sonny and Whoopi exchanged panicked glances, but Chuck wasn't done. "You wanna clash? You got it, but don't cry when you can't handle the pushback." Joy, visibly shaken but defiant, snapped back. "Handle it, Chuck. I've been doing this longer than you've been throwing punches." The crowd's roar drowned out everything, and Whoopi, nearly shouting, called for a break. The stage was chaos, and Chuck's eruption had lit the fuse. As the final segment began, the studio was a powder keg. The audience, still reeling from Chuck's stand, watched as Whoopi tried one last time to salvage the show. "All right, we've had some heat today, but let's end on a positive note." "Chuck, any final thoughts?" Chuck, now seated but radiating intensity, leaned forward. "I came here to talk about my work, my charity, my book, but instead, I got ambushed. That's fine, yeah, I can handle it, but let's be clear. I'm here for the people who need hope, not headlines. The crowd cheered, but Joy, still stinging, couldn't resist. Hope? Chuck, your version of hope is a macho fantasy. The world's moved on. Chuck's eyes locked onto hers, and his voice was a quiet thunder. The world's moved on from respect, from service, from standing up for what's right. Maybe your world, Joy, but not mine. The audience erupted, fully behind Chuck now. Joy, her voice sharp, shot back. Your world's a bubble, Chuck. Not everyone buys into your hero act. Chuck stood again, his presence towering, and not everyone buys into your cynicism. Joy, I've spent my life lifting people up. What have you built, besides controversy? The crowd roared, the noise shaking the studio. Whippy, exasperated, tried to wrap things up. Okay, we're out of time. Yeah, thank you, Chuck, for being here. But Chuck wasn't done. One last thing, Joy, you can mock me, my work, my values, but the people watching, they know what's real, and I'll keep fighting for them, whether you get it or not. The audience exploded, chanting his name as Joy sat back, silent for the first time. Sonny tried to lighten the mood. Well, that was a broken bar intense. Thanks, Chuck, for bringing the fire. Chuck nodded, his expression softening slightly. Thanks for having me, Sonny. Whippy, he glanced at Joy, his eyes saying more than words could. As the cameras panned out, the crowd was on its feet, the clash leaving everyone stunned. Whippy's voice barely cut through the noise. We'll be right back. The show ended, but the internet was already ablaze. Clips of Chuck's eruption spreading like wildfire. The legend had spoken, and the stage would never be the same.